Hi, my name is Shreyas Mathur, and I'm doing a demo for a coil gun for this ECE MAE 535 class. Um, so right now we're just going to go over a couple of important concepts before we test out the coil gun. First of all, let's go with the solenoid. So as we all know, the magnetic field of the solenoid is dependent on the permeability, the turn density, and the current flowing through that. Uh, we will definitely try to utilize the turn density and the current. In our case, there's a trade-off as far as the turn density is concerned. We can choose a thinner wire and have more turns, but at the same time, we'll need a lot of current to flow through it. So, we'd need the wire to be fat enough to handle that. And then secondly, we'll try and have a maximum amount of current flowing through that. And then the circuit that I have for this coil gun is derived from a disposable camera. It basically so we have a 1.5 volts battery, and there's a transformer in that which transforms it to about 300 volts and pushes that charge to a capacitor. And the capacitor basically in the camera it drives the flash, but I've taken out the flash and I've put my solenoid in place of the flash, so that 300 volts is basically dumped into the solenoid instantaneously. So over here we could see here is our solenoid, and this is our ferromagnetic projectile. That'll be our bullet. So as soon as there's current flowing through the solenoid, there's magnetic fields that it creates, and it creates a dipole moment on the projectile and it pulls it towards it. Over here we could see that this is a current versus time plot, and there's an instantaneous amount of current that comes. So as soon as the projectile, as soon as the current starts flowing through this, the projectile is pulled towards this, and then as soon as it kind of comes close to this, the current drops, and so the projectile just keeps going on its way. And if we can do this in 3 or 4 steps, then the projectile will have even more velocity. So this is basically the general concept of a coil gun. Now we can go to the lab and test it out. Okay, so this is basically the circuit that I've made for the coil gun. I've taken out the circuit from a old disposable camera that we could easily get from a photo store. And what this circuit does is that it takes the 1.5 volts from this battery, and there's a transformer in there. It transforms it to 300 volts and it dumps it into the flash circuit. So I've hacked this circuit, I've taken out the flash, and I've added the coil in there. So then this way all of that 300 volts will be instantaneously dumped into this coil, which will basically send our projectile over this way. The important thing is that the projectile has to be a magnetic material. So as soon as there's current through this coil, it magnetizes the projectile, and it'll send it on its way over this way. I've hacked this circuit, so I've removed the capacitor that it had, and I've taken a lot more capacitors. I've added a whole capacitor bank here, so that that instantaneous charge that it's provided is huge. And the more capacitors you add, the more will be the velocity of your projectile. Also, it's proportional to the amount of turns that you have on your solenoid. So the solenoid that I've made is basically consists of the body is from a old ballpoint pen, and I've added about 7 turns, 7 layers of 21 gauge magnet wire, and I've just put tape on the side just to make sure that the turns are compressed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert the battery, and then we're going to see a humming sound as soon as the capacitor charges. We're going to see that on the multimeter here, and then as soon as it reaches 250 volts, we're gonna see if the coil gun works. So yeah, let's get started. I'm inserting the battery in the circuit, and then these two will start charging. So now we could see on the multimeter that the capacitor is charging. So 72, 75. Yeah, let's wait for it to become 250. approaching almost 250 volts on the capacitors. The projectile is already in place. So let's see if it works. Wow. So looks like a coil gun was pretty powerful. We can see the projectile go here. And then so we can increase this velocity if we increase the number of turns in our coil, or if we increase the number of capacitors on board. So yay, we have a working coil gun.